Okay, welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for all the love that you're showing my videos, my tutorials. I've also received a lot of encouragement as well as inputs regarding how I can improve the video. Some of you have asked me to deal with the approach of particular hematological or cytopathological diseases, which I have taken into note. And I'll also try to tell you the clinical aspect with the problems that you face as a pathologist in that particular disease. Also, some of you have requested me to start with the histopathology and cytopathology lecture wise or system wise. So the cytopathology videos, the chapters, I follow the order of Orell's, not Gray's but Orell's. Gray's has a few very good topics which are not there in Orell's, which I will take once I finish with Orell's. Those topics are specifically pertaining to fluid cytology, BAL fluid, pleural fluid, CSF, etc. What Orel has is mainly FNAC, purely FNACs of organs, etc., which I am taking. After that, whatever in itself, Orel's is a complete book. But after that, what I'm going to be doing is whatever topics are left, which are there in Gray's, which are not there, that are not there in Orell's, I'm going to be taking from Gray's itself. So that is for cytopathology. Soon, once I finish with cytopath, I'll start with histopath also. Similar topics, similar system-wise discussion. Nothing too much, just short 15-minute discussions. That's it. So thank you for encouraging me. We are a 960 plus family. Soon we are going to be 1,000 plus subscriber family. Thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. And I have a good news to share with you. Soon I'll be sharing that probably by the end of this month due to lockdown. I had to face some problems, but soon I'll be coming out with that good news too. Till then, keep interacting with me the way you do, keep giving me your inputs, keep giving me your ideas, so that we can have a discussion based learning. And once we cross 1000, we are 1000, then I can even, as I wrote in the last description in the of the video, I can start calling certain seniors and experts to discuss your problems, who are professors and associate professors, who have much more teaching experience than I have. But that I'll do once we reach at least 1000, at least they have 1000 students listening to them, because they are seniors and they'll be taking out their precious time to deal with your questions. And then maybe I can then choose a few of you where we can have a small Zoom conversation where you can ask your questions and they are going to reply to your questions. And then I'll upload it on the channel. And this can be done for hematpath, for histopath and cytopath. And as the subscribers grow, I hope I can call the experts, the clinicians, for short interaction with you people, where you can even ask your clinicians questions, and it can become a proper CPC, a clinical pathological meet kind of a thing, where both of you benefit from the discussion. So, well, that is for the future. Let us see how much we can do. I hope I'll be able to do all of what I am telling you. But till for now, let us start with the topic, that is sideroblastic anemia. And again, following your opinion, input, as you suggested, I'll be taking a clinico-pathological approach to the subject. Now, we all know that there are certain different. I have started with the inherited bone marrow failures. Sideroblastic anemia is a part of that spectrum, and there are certain differentials that you will get when you are dealing with sideroblastic anemias. That is lead poisoning, anemia of chronic disease, and iron overload. Now, you must have heard of lead poisoning as a differential, sideroblastic as a differential for IDA. And you all know that anemia of chronic disease is normocytic normochromic. But now, now that we are seeing, we are reading, sideroblastic anemia is normally normocytic to microcytic. But at times, it has been seen that it can be macrocytic too. So means MCV wise on the CBC parameter, it can go from a normal MCV to a small to a higher MCV. Hence, the differentials are a little different. Okay, moving on. Now, supposing a case comes to you, a child comes to you, or an adult comes to you with anemia. That's it. Maybe organomegaly may not be there. There may be morphological distortions, dysmorphisms, or musculoskeletal abnormalities, or they might not be there. So the first step that you take towards a case of anemia is that you are going to see the age, the clinical presentation of the child, that is any dysmorphism is there, any musculoskeletal abnormality is there. Second, you are going to ask him that if the child has anemia, then or the adult has anemia, then is it a refractory anemia, or is it the first time that the parents have come with this complaint, or is it accompanied with jaundice, because then that becomes hemolysis and a certain different spectrum. Having said that, it doesn't mean that you might not get a liver dysfunction in sideroblastic. Acquired sideroblastic you can get, okay. So you have to then go order wise. Look for how long the anemia has been there. Look for the age. Look for any abnormalities in the musculoskeletal or any other systemic abnormalities, any organomegaly. Now you know that this child has either anemia with some problem, other problem, or only plain anemia. So the first step that you are going to work up is CBC and peripheral smear in any anemia, not only sideroblastic. Once you get your CBC report, then you check for what is the anemia, how much is the RBC, how much is the hemoglobin, what is the hematocrit, MCV, and entire RBC parameter you have to check. Now supposing you are getting a microcytic hypochromic picture, RBC count is mildly reduced, RDW is mildly raised or raised properly, and the child is presenting for the first time, no other problem, maybe some koilonychia, spooning of the nails is there, but no other problem. Fine, you make a diagnosis of IDA, treat the child for IDA, the child responds good, that's an iron deficiency. You can go for a peripheral smear examination also. The peripheral smear reveals in this child microcytic hypochromic picture, some pencil cells, mild poikilocytosis, moderate to mild. Okay, done. This is IDA. Or you might get a child, as I've already discussed, the RBC count is normal, the RDW is not that much raised, MCV is quite low, anemia is long standing, there might be a family history of anemia, there might be a family history of transfusions, recurrent transfusions. If the child is of, like 14-15 years, then you might get a previous history of multiple transfusions, but not a worked up child. You look for liver status, organ status. If the child is coming with extreme jaundice and a large liver and is in acute hemolysis, there's a lot of leukoerythroblastosis in the blood smear. Or the child can be totally normal, just with maybe a hepatomegaly and anemia. You calculate Menzer's index and you see that the child is pointing towards a case of thalassemia. You then go ahead and check the bone marrow, the peripheral blood smear, and you see that there are target cells, there are bizarre poikilocytes, there might be stomatocytes, there might be erythrocytes, and then the diagnosis of thalassemia or HB pathies, or there might be spherocytes, then you go in that hemolytic spectrum. Or there might be a case where a child or an adult comes with anemia, the MCV is normal, the RBC count is okay, fine, and yet the child has anemia. You go for a peripheral blood smear examination. The picture might be normocytic, normochromic, or there might be macrocytosis sometimes, or microcytic hypochromic with some degree of poikilocytosis. Reticulocyte count is very important because in hemolysis, there's an increased retic count in acute hemolysis. Or if the marrow is not responding, there will be reticulocytopenia, like in B12 deficiencies or when there is no hematinic available. Then you also, in cases like, thalassemia, golf ball appearance, then you can quickly catch, yeah, this is alpha thalassemia. So I'll just change the slide Y to tell you that in sideroblastic anemia, following the same approach, what you might get is a normocytic, macrocytic, microcytic picture. You might not get any other change except mild poikilocytosis, or you might get some change in the WBCs. WBCs might show vacuolization. You might get dyserythropoiesis and dysmyelopoiesis. You might get some remnants in RBCs. You might not get anything. You might get some blue dots in the RBC and think as stored iron. Then you go for iron stain or pearl stain, and then you get proper siderocytes. You might then you go for a bone marrow, and then you'll get a sideroblast. So sideroblastic anemia is actually a diagnosis of intuition also, rather than just seeing your CBC and making a diagnosis. So when you have ruled out iron deficiency, B12, you have asked history for lead toxicity, and that has also been ruled out, and other organomegalies, hemolysis, has some rule out kar liya. Then you know should develop a clinical acumen to think that could this be, with this kind of a picture where NN RBCs are there, certain cytoplasmic vacuolation is there, could this be a sideroblastic anemia? You advise a bone marrow because this is an IBMF, and it will always IBMFs have a long standing history. Means refractory anemia होगा. Anemia will not respond for the पहली बार में दवा दी respond कर गया, it won't happen. Or if it is iron overload which mimics a sideroblastic situation, then you'll have a history कि इसको multiple transfusions मिल चुके हैं. थाल का बच्चा बहुत ज़्यादा ट्रांसफ्यूजन दिया गया, आयरन ओवरलोड हुआ, अनीमिया हो गया बिकॉज ऑफ आयरन ब्लॉकिंग द हेमाटोपोइसिस. So basically now you have to use your brains when you get the bone marrow. In any refractory anemia, when everything has been ruled out, you will get a bone marrow. Then you have to use your brains and look for these clues, like always and always get a pearl stain in a case of refractory anemia. Quickly you see a sideroblast. You know what a sideroblast is. I have told you more than 5 granules around the nucleus, more than 2/3 of the nucleus circumference should be involved with iron granules, and they are coarse granules. You might get sideroblasts, you might get dysbiosis, you will get some feature which you'll quickly make a diagnosis. So whenever you get this kind of a smear, where the anemia sab kuch rule out ho gaya and you cannot make out, get a pulse, get a reticulocyte done, and of course then you get your routine marrow stains done. So what happens in sideroblastic anemia is that there is a normal iron absorption, but since the protoporphyrin synthesis is not adequate, there is a defect in iron incorporation. Hence the iron stays out and then gets accumulated. The types: hereditary and acquired. I'll go in detail later on. Hereditary can be XLSA, that is X-linked. Then X-linked with ataxia, abnormal movements with anemia. I told you, look for clinical. You might get dysmorphism, musculoskeletal abnormalities, abnormal movements, pancreatitis in Pearson syndrome. Then there's Wolfram syndrome. Thiamine responsive anemia. Thiamine also plays a very big role in development of sideroblastic anemia. So you have to check for whether give a treatment of thiamine and see whether the patient is responding or not. Then there's autosomal recessive, and then there's congenital with B cell immunodeficiency, and then there's acquired. So this is given in Tejinder Singh Sir's book. Hereditary is XLSA, thiamine responsive, DIDMOD, X-linked SA, then Pearson syndrome, autosomal recessive. Acquired is mainly pure sideroblastic anemia, that is idiopathic, cause not known. Okay. Then there's another category of acquired which is associated with clonal disorders. MDS has an entire classification devoted to presence of ring sideroblasts. You are getting my point? Ring sideroblasts mil rahe hain with dysbiosis. Then don't think of sideroblastic anemia, then think of MDS. Because that is a more dangerous diagnosis, clonal diagnosis, which can progress to leukemia. And in this case, you will get dysbiosis and ring sideroblasts. And the anemia will not be responsive. However, clinically the age is more. It is more common in older age group. Then there are certain secondary reversible causes. So when a child comes to you, ask for lead exposure, जैसे parks में red color के swings होते हैं, या people put टीका बच्चों को, so that vermilion, it has lead in it, it is not pure. Then ask for history of drug, even in adults, ATT है, chloramphenicol. बच्चों में जिंक ज़्यादा ट्रीटमेंट जिंक की दे दी जाए just to ओवर कॉम्पनसेट, then that is also wrong. Then hemodialysis के patients में होता है pyridoxine and thiamine deficiencies. So you need to copper deficiency, even copper deficiency can cause sideroblastosis as well as vacuolation in the erythroid and the myeloid series. So these things mimic MDS, these things mimic a pure sideroblastic anemia, and you should keep it in mind. So starting with the table, so when if it is congenital, then the mutation for congenital with immunodeficiency is TR-NT1, all this you have to remember. The autosomal recessive is SLC25A38, Rogers syndrome SLC1982, and Wolfram is WFS1. Now what happens in these congenital, always remember mota yaad rakho, that what happens in congenital is that there will be some sort of a defect or some sort of an organomegaly accompanying the anemia. So in congenital with since immunodeficiency is there, so what you're going to get is a repeated fever with delayed development. ARSA में no response to pyridoxine and accompanied thalassemia and BMT is the treatment. Dyserythropoiesis, I told you. However, Rogers के अलावा, if you are getting dyserythropoiesis isolated with ring sideroblast, think of MDS first with age. Otherwise, of course, you can get dyserythropoiesis with sensorineural hearing loss. I told you, syndromic, and diabetes mellitus, and think of Rogers. Wolfram, diabetes mellitus, optic atrophy, sensory neural hearing loss, all these will accompany. So if an adult comes to you, a child with hearing loss, with diabetes, which is not suited to the age, and anemia, which is unresponsive, always and always get your pearls stained. Pearson's, again, I told you, the respiratory chain is affected, and you get leukocytopenias, you get anemia, liver and pancreas are dysfunctional, neurological symptoms can be there. Marrow might be normal cellular, hypocellular, or hypercellular. The picture of RBCs is mainly macrocytic in Pearson's because there's DNA affecting the respiratory chain, and you are going to see vacuolization in the myeloid lineage. Overall survival is 1 to 2. X-linked sideroblastic anemia, ABC7. This is an important exam question. It is asked, and you'll get ataxia and pyridoxine resistance. Then another XLSA where ALAS2 is mutated. Again, here you are going to get normal to reduced MCV. So Pearson's has macrocytosis. X-linked recessive sideroblastic anemia, it has microcytosis. But cytoplasmic vacuolation, dyspoiesis, ring sideroblasts are there. If there's too much dyspoiesis, old age of the patient is there, refractory, think of MDS. Okay. So this is the dyserythropoiesis with some vacuolation. You can see these are vacuoles over here. Alright, and then this is cytoplasmic blebbing. And see, myeloid lineage shows vacuoles in the cytoplasm. A ring of iron granules covering the entire circumference of the nucleus of the RBC nucleus. Increased iron stores. Again, a ring sideroblast is seen. Acquired can be idiopathic, I've shown you, or clonal like MDS, and MDS has entire classification dedicated to presence of ring sideroblast. What are the enzyme deficiencies? You know that I told you there's deficiency in the protoporphyrin synthesis, so this is the entire chain. And when there's allosynthetase, dehydratase and deaminase deficiency, you'll get neurological symptoms. As you progress into the chain and move towards protoporphyrin, you are going to get photosensitivity and liver toxicity. This is also important when you study porphyrias. Okay, and then of course you can see macrocytosis in the arrows. This is image taken from Tejinder Singh Sir's book. You can see it over there. Again, idiopathic, I told you it can be macrocytic, dimorphic. I mean picture बिल्कुल CDA जैसी हो सकती है, dimorphic anemia की तरह हो सकती है, megaloblastosis. Again, you have to go for pulse and look for ring sideroblast. Even if you are not suspecting, always go for pulse. Why? Because इस type की picture में कभी-कभार clinically you are not getting any sideroblastic anemia features, but you might get a ring sideroblast, and then you can caution the clinician. My marrow will be hypercellular, megaloblastosis can be there, increased iron stores. What is a ring sideroblast? Large granules greater than 5, perinuclear, more than 1/3 of the ring is complete. Normal transferrin saturation is there. Ferritin is increased again because there's iron overload, and this is the mechanism. You can see this. This is given on the net as well as in the Singh book. Again, I told you MDS has entire part of the classification devoted to the percentage of ring sideroblasts. I will take it up when I'm taking MDS. It is divided into, actually this is a shorter form, greater than 15, less than 15. Otherwise they divided into 9, 10 to 15 and less than 10, like that. But you have to get ring sideroblasts with dyspoiesis in MDS. Mutation, of course, MDS is always accompanied with mutation. When there's SF3B1, then it can progress to AML. These are the secondary causes. Again, less than if a history of alcoholism is there, even if you're getting 5 ring sideroblasts, that is less than 15%, you know it is because of alcohol. You ask the patient to withdraw alcohol and give some nutritional supplementation. ATT again affects allosynthetase function. Again, you can get ring sideroblasts in a smear of ATT. Even in chloramphenicol is a drug given as treatment, but sometimes it causes aplastic anemia, copper deficiency, B6 deficiency, and causes ring sideroblasts. So this is in short about sideroblastic anemia and how to clinically approach and what to look for in a smear. These are my references, and I have no monetary gains from this video, and some of the images are not mine. I've taken it from various sources. So I hope this helps, and next time I am going to be presenting to you a cytopathology topic. Thank you.